Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my February wrap-up part 1. We'll start with the queer ones. First we have the F slur and their friends Between Revolutions, which is a classic. It's from the 70s, I think. And it is a sort of utopian, sort of like making utopia while things around you are dystopic story. It doesn't have a lot of specific characters. It usually talks about like groups of people and what they were doing. If you do not like the F slur, it's used a lot in this book. There are 4 main groups of people you'll come across in this book that are the F slurs, the queens, the women, and the men. And it's a lot told in verse, or very much told versus shown. It's very short, and I really liked it. It's definitely a window into some ideas of queer culture at the time, and I also really enjoyed the introduction, and I think there's also a foreword about the author and like what was going on with this work. 5 stars. Then The One Who Loves You the Most I found in the Queer Liberation Library, and it is okay. The story is a good story, and I like the characters, but the way the story is told is constantly interrupted with encyclopedia entries, what I would consider encyclopedia entries worth of explanation of queer terms every time a new queer term comes up via dialogue, which is extremely unrealistic and kind of annoying. Even if I didn't already know what the terms meant, that's called info dumping if it was fake information, and I think it's still called info dumping if it's real information, and it's not really enjoyable to read. I believe this is about the first year of high school, so the kids are like 14. For that age group, I also think it's a little unrealistic to have the storyline of the bully being redeemed by the main character giving him a hug. Also, this is noted in someone else's review, and that made me think of, yeah, that was really weird. The bully also trauma dumps to the class in the form of talking about the verbal abuse he suffered in a class project presentation, and the only reaction from the teacher is, and the only caveat that the teacher gives to help the kids understand or like process what has just happened is he says we shouldn't really use the word stupid, because that had been a quote from the parent doing the verbal abuse, and the teacher's like, but I understand why it was necessary for your project. Other than that, I really liked it, so I'm gonna give it 3.75 stars. I did think the mental illness rep of the mother of the main character was pretty good as a mentally ill person, but I don't specifically have what the mother has, so take that with a grain of salt. Then we have my favorite book so far of the month. Probably will make it on my top 10 list for this year, or my top 5, whichever I end up doing. Refusing Compulsive Sexuality, A Black Asexual Lens on Our Sex-Obsessed Culture by Sharonda J. Brown. Inspired me to make a zine. Like, it was a lot of stuff I knew. A lot of it I spent time talking about our sex-obsessed culture and aphobia. But the way it was framed was just really comforting and healing for me as an asexual person, and I really appreciated that. And then the end, which is the part that I use the information from to make my zine mostly, is a rundown of basically the history of how the public has talked about and put in writing stuff about asexuality for the last 2 centuries, which was really cool because like even myself, I thought that a lot of people didn't come up with terms for it until like the 90s, but in fact that's just when they came online and were able to do it online. But there's actually written stuff of people like saying, yeah, I think they didn't use this specific word, but they did try to come up with words for it, like asensual, back in like the mid 1800s. So then they wrote it down and put it in pamphlets. So that was really cool. And then, of course, because it is a Black asexual lens, we also get information about and perspectives on how aphobia is particularly leveled against Black people and how they are treated as super sexual, but also and like it's impossible for them to be asexual. And 5 star, anyway, it's really good. 5 stars, loved it. Then we have some more nonfiction. Four Faces of the Moon is an adaptation of a stop motion movie, which you can kind of tell some of the pictures look like, pictures of stop motion puppets. And it is about the genocide of the Native Americans and largely via the genocide of the buffalo. People in Canada and the sort of northern half of the US, and their governments encouraged them to do so, would kill buffalo as a way to get rid of Native Americans because the Native Americans depended on eating the buffalo. And this is about how the author's family survived and how the family resisted as much as they could at various stages. The afterword also tells the story of the Métis, who are descendants of Native US and Canadian people who had relationships with, got married to various, usually French, fur trappers and traders. And that's who the author is a part of. Vital history that we don't want to forget. 5 stars. Then we have The Dead Are Arising, which is a biography of Malcolm X. It was mostly written by one author. Well, the information was mostly compiled by one author, and then I believe his daughter put it together and put it all into written out format. There is a lot of background information about the status of Black people and what was going on with Black people and their fight for civil rights before Malcolm was born, when he was a kid, and then leading up to when he became an activist. There's also a lot of background of the Nation of Islam that Malcolm X joined while he was in prison, and his time with. So there's a lot of extra stuff in addition to just Malcolm X's life, but I think that stuff really is important if you want to understand what forces were working on Malcolm and what influenced him, if you don't already have that specific background, which I didn't, so I think that was all really useful. It just makes it a really long book, so it took me quite a while to get through it. It was very interesting. It also goes through the details of Malcolm X's assassination and basically investigates it and tells you kind of who was responsible. And at the back, it includes some of his very last writings to kind of bring us up to speed, because it was kind of a Q&A. He was answering questions by writing them down. His thoughts on a lot of topics, so that was really interesting and helpful. I did not know before how he spent his early life, or that he was a raving misogynist for most of it. It sounds like he was coming around to be less so from those last writings. Also, learned a lot about the Nation of Islam. The author of this book clearly doesn't have a very high opinion of, which he passed on to me by what he told about it. So that was very interesting. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. And then I read another J.D. Robb book, the latest one. So that's what I've read. That's 6 books. A lot of queerness and BIPOC authors this time. No fat or disability reps so far, so we'll see how that goes for the rest of the month. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something purple? And you'll see you in the next video. Bye!